From the Clark Ford Studio in Oxford, Mississippi, MBW Digital proudly presents the Oxford Exxon Podcast.
I'd say thanks for tuning in, but why am I going to give you a round of applause for something you're supposed to do, to be frank?
And now, here are your hosts, Chase Parham.
And broadcast school has really paid off.
And Neal McCready.
I deserve to be on TV.
Tuesday edition of the Oxford Exxon Podcast. Chase Parham, Neal McCready, Clark Ford Studio this morning. We have times, we have dates for the Super Regional matchup between Ole Miss and Arkansas beginning this weekend in Fayetteville. Also today, we will speak with Andrew Hutchinson of Hogbeat.com. We'll talk a good bit of Ole Miss baseball, Arkansas baseball, but then we have other SEC writers, media members on the show. We talk football too, so we'll discuss how the Razorbacks are circling that early season game against Ole Miss as well, about how it's their path to 6 wins, probably, if they're able to get there in Chad Morris' second season, and kind of what Chad Morris' job security looks like after a 2-10 first year, but a pretty good recruiting class. So that and more coming up with Andrew on the Oxford Exxon Podcast, brought to you every single day by the Oxford Exxon Blue Sky. There on Highway 6 West, you know about the great gas prices with the mobile rewards app, the Speed Pass Plus, and much more. Lunch specials, ribs, pick them up. Maybe you want to get them for the games this weekend. You can call ahead. They'll wrap them up, have them ready to go wet or dry. Also, daiquiris as little as $3.99, as big as 44 ounces if you so wish. So again, that's the Oxford Exxon on Highway 6 West. Again, coming to you from the Clark Ford Studio.
We are Clark Ford's in Amory, 662-257-1900 is the number. Call the number, ask for Corey Clark, and then tell Corey what Ford you're looking for. He'll send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. It's truly that simple. It's that efficient. It's right to the bottom line. There's no haggling. There's no hassle. It's an efficient process for him and therefore an efficient process for you. At the very least, it's a starting line, a baseline for you moving forward in your quest for your new automobile, or you're very likely going to end up doing what I've done 3 times now, and that is get yourself into a Clark Ford from Amory. You get great service, you get a great product, great service, and Corey wants to be your truck guy. He wants to be your car guy. He'll prove that to you months and years after your purchase. 662-257-1900. Call the number, and don't forget to tell Corey at the end of the deal that you heard about Clark Ford on the podcast. You'll save $500.
So it is a Saturday start for Ole Miss and Arkansas that will run Saturday, Sunday, and then the if necessary game on Monday. It kicks off, weather permitting. Mr. McCready playing meteorologist a little bit, tells me there's some issues there, but 11 a.m. on Saturday is the first start time, 2 p.m. Sunday, and then 3 p.m. if necessary on Monday. 3 different networks, too. Just go ahead and tell you this. We'll put it on the message board, obviously. ESPN on Saturday, ESPNU on Sunday, and then ESPN 2 on Monday if necessary. So that's Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And it does look like that they did kind of factor in some what teams were playing, some TV kind of draws a little bit for this, because the Saturday teams starting Ole Miss and Arkansas, Florida State and LSU, Auburn and North Carolina, Stanford and Mississippi State. The Friday games, Michigan, UCLA, Duke, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and East Carolina and Louisville. As we said yesterday, it's not really a ratings thing, but you'd rather have good teams than bad teams, or at least known programs. And ESPN certainly got that. That's 7 of 8 that are very, very widely known around the country.
And before anybody gets worked up on the Friday, Saturday thing, I have, for obvious reasons, I've got Fayetteville as one of my settings on my Weather Channel app. It's a 100% chance of heavy thunderstorms all day and all night in Fayetteville on Friday. So had they scheduled a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it would have been a Saturday, Sunday, Monday anyway. So probably quit worrying about that part. Mother Nature was going to dictate that. There is the rain's supposed to get out late morning, early afternoon on Saturday. So they'll play Saturday. But if the weather app is correct, then you know how that goes. If it is, it might be a little later than 11 a.m. when they throw the first pitch.
That's not really, I'm looking at this. This is pretty good start times. On Monday, you're going to have a dead environment. If you get to a Monday, it's not like bomb's going to be rocking.
It's fine. It'll be just, look, Fayetteville is so much like Oxford, it's unbelievable. The difference is there is a lot more I mean, just keeping this totally real. 10 minutes outside of Oxford in any direction, you're just sort of in the middle of nowhere. There you have some really big, basically huge communities, Rogers and Springdale and Bentonville and all of that. But yeah, a lot of those people are going to have work. Now, a lot of those people are going to leave work. It'll be full. It's not. This thing's not going to be decided by atmosphere. These two teams, it might. Look, if this were a team like UCLA or something, you know, I don't know, pick a random team, East Carolina, not picking on Cliff, but some team that's not used to playing in front of crowds, a big crowd might impact things a little bit. You know, Illinois State might have gotten rattled a little bit yesterday by some of the crowd at Louisville, just the noise of it all.
Which, yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, they're a bad team, but I mean, Jacksonville State got completely rattled over the weekend.
Yeah. Ole Miss isn't going to get rattled in Fayetteville any more than Arkansas would have gotten rattled in Oxford. These SEC teams, Mississippi State and LSU and Ole Miss and Texas A&M and Arkansas, Auburn to some extent, Alabama, because they play in all these locales. Those teams don't get intimidated on.
You embrace it. You have fun with it.
Well, you have no choice really, because you're going to play half of your schedule that way. So, I'm not knocking the Arkansas crowd at all. I mean, it's a great venue. They'll fill it up. It'll be loud and all that stuff, but that won't rattle Ole Miss any more than Arkansas would have been rattled if they had to come to Oxford to play. This is going to come down to two teams that know each other really well. It's going to literally come. You know how coaches do cliches? The cliches actually will be true this weekend. This will literally come down to who can execute pitches.
Mike Bianca will give a quote sometime today during this media op about how, yeah, you know, we know them, they know us, blah, blah, blah.
And it's true. It's true. I mean,
he didn't pander for Arkansas video as soon as the game ended the other night.
No, they know what Campbell throws in the same way that Arkansas knows what Etheridge throws. So it comes down to your ability to execute pitches. It's kind of like when you watch in Major League Baseball, when you watch the Cubs and the Cardinals or the Cubs and the Brewers or the Red Sox Yankees or Yankees Rays, whatever, pick your division, where you play a team all the time. Those teams know each other. They see that pitcher all the time. It's about execution. It won't be about all the start times and crowd and all that baloney. I mean, that stuff's a factor a lot, but it won't be a factor in this at all.
On Friday, if you're curious, if you're just some of the college baseball junkies trying to watch baseball, they did stagger all the start times for you, 11, 2, 5, and 8 on Friday for those games, and then Saturday, obviously, because you're having to play 8 different games over the course of the day, it's just constant all day long. So just heads up there a little bit.
Seeing someone on the message board say, you know, what's the deal with the times? The deal with the times is simple. They've got these stations, and they need programming on it, so someone's got to play early, someone has to play in the middle of the day, etc. I mean, they're just basically trying to fill up the times.
And it looks like everybody got at least one day game. The way I'm just kind of scrolling here, UCLA didn't, but that's a West Coast thing. Vanderbilt kind of didn't. They play a 5:00 game. Otherwise, everybody's got a day game. You know, and now you can almost dictate it too a little bit. I mean, I don't know if ESPN is doing this, but there was a draft last night. You've got some first round guys. I mean, you do draw in a few more eyes when you get to this part of the year because major league fans want to see their prospects and their draft picks. So at J.J. Bleday, say for the Marlins or something, you've got that kind of factored in where it will pick up a little bit. But,
yeah, sure, absolutely.
You know, speaking of that, Grae Kessinger, the only Rebel off the board. Grae went 68th overall to the Astros last night. He signing bonus on that one somewhere around $950,000. I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but it's something like that. I looked at it a minute ago. $953,100 the signing bonus for Grae. So 68, a little higher than projected, but really happy for him. You know, a guy that you can make all the family jokes and you can do all the stuff, but that's not the easiest situation to come to. You got that kind of legacy. You got that kind of name on your back. You got to perform. It would be easy in a way to go somewhere else where you don't have to deal with that extra bit of external stuff going on. Instead, he he spent 3 years and created his own branch of that legacy. So really credit to him because, he gets here and struggles for 3 years. That could be a tough college experience. And instead, he's really performed well. He's an all-SEC shortstop, and now he's in definitely a good spot. That's a crowded infield, but as time goes on, pretty good organization to be involved in there with Houston.
It's a real good organization, and it's a crowded infield, which means that he either will replace somebody or he will be a prime piece of trade bait on a deadline deal or in one of those winter meetings deals. It'll all work out. In the minor leagues, you just perform. You'll find your way to the majors either with the organization that you're with or you'll become a commodity that gets traded somewhere. I think Grae's going to play in the bigs. I don't think there's much doubt. He looks like does he grow out of shortstop and move to third? Does he play second? Is he a utility guy? I don't know. I just think he has a lot of tools that translate to the major league level.
Yeah, you just think he'll figure it out. They'll figure it out.
Yeah. I would imagine the Astros organization will look at him kind of all over the infield at first.
Otherwise, really good night for Ole Miss. Hayden Dunhurst, the catcher out of Pearl River Central, has not gone yet. I'm still that 82 pick by the Marlins. Watch it a little bit this morning. But if you get past that, I think you can start feeling pretty good about Dunhurst, barring something crazy with them saving some money in other spots on whoever takes him or whatever. But getting close to feeling pretty good there. As expected, no Jerry and Ely off the board in the first 2 rounds. I mean, he had it was just a nosedive. Is what it's been. So we'll see where that ends up over the course of the day. Rounds 3 through 10 today for the draft. 1 and 2 last night. 3 through 10 today, and then 11 through 40 tomorrow. Cooper Johnson should get picked early today. And then after Cooper, I think it's just a lot of those guys in that 3 to 10 range. You've got Etheridge, you've got Zabowski, maybe. You've got Thomas Dillard's going to come off in that spot, and then maybe some other signability recruits. But you get through today, and you can start piecing the roster together for the most part for next season if you're Ole Miss. But they're in pretty good shape. Connor Walsh didn't go. He could have easily gotten $1 million last night. His number was much higher than that. He's a CAA client. They don't exactly let their guys go cheap. So Ole Miss benefiting from the draft. And frankly, I didn't see a ton of SEC commits go yesterday. It was lots of college players, lots of Power 5 college players. And I think overall, just kind of glancing at it and watching a good bit of the draft last night, I think the SEC is potentially getting loaded with talent, and that's coming a year after they got the 3 or 4 first-round pick arms to campus in Ginn and Hoagland and Landon Marceau and all those guys. So this thing has taken such a shift to college players that it, is obviously great for the college game, but it's also just giving influxes of talent in all these major programs. So, I don't know. In some ways, I'm wondering if it's almost decreasing parity, Neil, because they're all running to the same 10, 15, 20 programs over and over again with these first and second round picks.
Yeah, they're going to the high-level Power 5 schools. That's who's getting drafted. The one team that got hit, they knew they'd get hit. I think they'd given up on him a long time ago. I can't think of the kid's name. He went in the top 10 to where'd he go? It's a kid from Georgia. He's a shortstop who hits left-handed. He was committed to Alabama. I can't think of his name. I can't think of where he went. It was like 6th pick in the draft.
Oh,
maybe?
Abrams.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams, thanks. He's obviously not going to go to Tuscaloosa now, but I think Alabama had accepted that a long way back. Because Florida, the Marlins had looked at him pretty heavy.
J.J. Abrams is a director.
Oh, okay. Me and pop culture. The Marlins had looked at Abrams with the 4th pick before they decided on Blade. So, I'm sure Alabama knew that if he fell from 4, he wasn't falling far. I was listening to MLB Network a little bit yesterday. Carson had soccer. I was going to get him, and I had the draft on in the car, and they were raving about the value. I think he went 6th.
He did go 6th.
They were raving about the analysts were raving about the value of getting a kid like that at 6, saying that normally a kid with that skill set would go 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, Adley Rutschman goes number 1 overall, the catcher from Oregon State. He goes to the Orioles. We didn't talk about this yesterday. Bases loaded. You're up 3 runs. Would you have walked him the other night?
Bases loaded, and I'm up 3.
Yeah, it's the 7th inning, I believe. Maybe the 8th. You're
Who's
up 5-2. Rutschman's at the plate. The bases are loaded, and they intentionally walked him.
Who's behind him?
I don't know. I mean, they're 4-hitter, decent, whatever.
I probably do.
Okay. They did. The next guy singled and tied the game. However, Cincinnati did go on to win the game.
Yeah, I don't let him beat me.
The next guy beat you at the moment.
Yeah, but I'm worried about him hitting the double into the gap or the home run over the left field wall. And
he's hitting .420 on the season.
Yeah, I mean, I probably, I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. I know it's unconventional, but I'm not super conventional if I were a baseball manager. I don't know how much I'd play it straight by the book.
Bobby Witt Jr. went second. Everybody expected that. The Royals had targeted him for basically ever. Andrew Vaughn, the big-time first baseman out of Cal that we mentioned the other day, he goes to the White Sox at 3. J.J. Bleday, the Vanderbilt slugger, goes 4 to the Marlins. That's been really known, too. Posada and Jeter were in Hoover scouting him a couple weeks ago or last week, whenever it was.
Actually, their whole organization was basically there. They had like 8 or 9 people there in Hoover.
Not exactly hiding it, were they?
Well, they were trying to. I heard about this last night too. I don't know why I wasn't really paying a lot of attention to it, but I had it on, and the programming was really good. The Marlins wanted to slip in after Vanderbilt's first game had started. They didn't really want him to know they were there, and apparently he did not know until much later in the game that they were there. But a lot of other people knew that he was there, obviously, because people were trying to get autographs and pictures and stuff. But I think they had already made up their mind that they were going with Bleday, and then his performance that day in Hoover solidified it. They were there 5 for 5, I think.
That was that day, yeah. Yeah, just college players everywhere. Lodolo from TCU goes 7. The kid from Texas Tech, the third baseman, goes 8. The Baylor catcher, Shea Langoliers, goes 9 to the Braves. Arizona State kid, 10. West Virginia, 11. I mean, just on and on down the line. Also, not many arms. There wasn't even an arm gone at all until Lodolo went at 7. First 6 guys, position players, and then the next 3 after that. Yeah,
Cubs took an arm, I saw, and then they took a middle infielder from UCLA who was in the on deck circle when they drafted him. He hit a home run next, but everything I've heard about the people who analyzed the draft are that the Cubs reached twice, so they must be trying to save money.
The first reach amazed me because they could have gotten Ryan Jensen in the 3rd round, I think.
Yeah, I don't get it. They must be trying to save cash. The whole we're broke thing is starting to piss me off.
A small conference reliever in the 1st round that you could have easily gotten 30 picks later. Without even a thought.
I don't get it.
You could have just grabbed Ethan Small. He went 1 pick later. The state ace to Milwaukee.
Is he the kid that yells at everybody all the time?
Well, he yelled at Central Michigan. He does not typically yell at people. Central Michigan was chirping him, and he chirped back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he does not. I had not seen that out of him earlier in the season.
Gotcha.
But yeah, he was. The Chippewas were being chippy, and he did yell back. It appeared. It picked up a lot of pub because Pitching Ninja tweeted it out the other day.
Yeah.
So. Logan Davidson, the shortstop that was in the Oxford Regional from Clemson, went 29 overall to the A's. Braves also picked, in addition to Langoliers, for the Braves fans out there, they took Braden Shoemake, the Texas A&M shortstop, 21. He was great as a freshman. He's got high contact. He doesn't strike out much, but that felt like a little bit of a reach. I'll be honest. I'll be stunned if he has some huge impact. I thought that he has regressed some in his time at College Station, and he's still a good player, but 21 overall felt odd there to me with Shoemake. So
Yeah, you see it more than I do, but he was not the same player as a junior that he was early in his career.
No,
and maybe that's because people pitched him differently. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, and I'm sure that the Braves and every other big league team has scouted him in the Cape and whatnot. They have a lot more info than you and I have, but
yeah,
still,
eye test wise, it looked a little funny. That's all. So
saw where the kid that will pitch against Ole Miss on Saturday. Is it Isaiah Campbell? Is that his name?
It is Isaiah Campbell. He and Dominic Fletcher went back-to-back, or 2 picks apart, or their back-to-back picks last night.
Like in the mid-70s, I think.
Yeah, right at the end of the second round.
Yeah.
I think one of them got taken by the Marlins. I'm not sure where the other one got taken.
Mariners, maybe? I can't remember.
Maybe it was Mariners, not Marlins. Sounds close.
No.
Either way. Let's talk about Isaiah Campbell and the Razorbacks in a second with Andrew Hutchinson. Before we do, I'll tell you about G&M Pharmacy there on South Lamar in Oxford. Them and Tyson Drugs in Holly Springs, both offering in CBD oil. It is in sublingual oil, soft gel capsules, and many other options. An all-natural product helps maintain overall health and regulate many conditions such as depression, anxiety, pain, insomnia, and more. Give them a call. Ask them about it. Transfer your medications. Whatever pharmaceutical needs you have, they will help you out. 662-236-2222. And remember, they deliver local in the Oxford area.
Father's Day is coming up, June the 16th. It's the perfect time to break the monotony of boring Father's Day gifts with a pair of Mississippi-made Blue Delta jeans. Don't get Dad another tie or some, tool or something that he doesn't want or he's going to break. Get him a pair of jeans that you know he'll love. If you can't get him into the Oxford studio before Father's Day, you can email info@bluedeltajeans.com. Purchase a gift card. Blue Delta will ship it out to Dad for his big day. And speaking of coming to Oxford, Ole Miss orientation is in full swing in June. So if you're coming to town for orientation, it's the perfect time to drop in the studio, check out Blue Delta's raw denim and Holland and Sherry fabrics, as well as the new spring-summer collection and their new tactical camo pants. Listen, guys, you don't want to be the parents that are wearing poorly fitting jeans at orientation. I've got one coming up. I've got to figure out what I'm wearing because I don't want to embarrass Campbell. So anyway, get in touch with them. info@bluedeltajeans.com. The store is open on the square in Oxford. You can always drop in. The best thing to do is send that email and set up a fitting. And don't forget, Blue Delta would be a perfect Father's Day gift. Speaking of coming to Oxford, people will be coming before you know it for football season. 7 South tailgating is the way to go if you are planning to tailgate this fall, whether you're coming up for one game or you're coming up for all the games or some combination thereof. 7 South Tailgating is the premier tailgating service provider at Ole Miss. They offer your standard tailgating services such as tent, table, chair, setup, breakdown, but they also offer so much more. They'll store your personal gear. You can rent from them. They offer cooler, ice, beverage service, TV, satellite, generator service, storage bins for supplies and decor, chandeliers, tablecloths, ground carpeting or hay for ground cover, tents, sidewalls, whatever you might need, they have it. You can go online today for a quote, a detailed, customized quote to your specific needs, 662-321-1682, or visit 7southtailgating.com. The podcast is also brought to you by Oxford University Bank. OUB, locally owned and operated right here in Oxford. When you deposit money at OUB, that money and the vast majority of the bank's profits go right back into the Oxford community. OUB gives you the comfort of home, all the benefits the big mega banks provide, all the technology and products you can want, all with a personal touch. When you call OUB, you speak directly with the live person. There's no 10 buttons to push. There's no 5-minute wait. They offer Kasasa. It's the absolute best cash checking account. It's called. You get 2.5% interest on their balances up to $50,000, and ATM fees are refunded nationwide. To learn more about OUB, check out liveoxfordbankoxford.com or call 662-234-6668. OUB is FDIC insured.
Now let's go to Andrew Hutchinson with hogbeat.com. Andrew, good afternoon. Thanks for giving us a little time on the podcast today. When this bracket came out, obviously Ole Miss and Arkansas know tons about each other. The Rebels taking 2 out of 3 earlier this year and then splitting a couple games in Hoover. I know from the Ole Miss standpoint, they kind of laughed at it a little bit, took some confidence from it, and just the familiarity was sort of a joke to them. From the Arkansas side of things, what was sort of the reaction when the bracket comes out and you think you know where this is headed in a week?
Yeah, I think most of the Arkansas fans were had their conspiracy hats on, of course, and they were like, "Oh, of course, the NCAA tournament's going to match us up with a team that has beaten us this year and everything." And I think that's maybe not necessarily Arkansas fans only, but I feel like a lot of fans, especially across the SEC, sometimes get like that. But I think all the Arkansas fans were like, oh, of course, we're going to have to play another SEC team. Last year in the Super Regionals, Arkansas was matched up with South Carolina, which was the only team that beat Arkansas, only SEC team that beat Arkansas in Fayetteville last year when they went 14-1 at home in SEC play. So I think it was just one of those things where some Arkansas fans also said, all right, this is if we're going to get back to Omaha, if we're going to get back to the National Championship Series, where we were last year, it's going to take you're going to have to conquer all the demons, and that includes a potential matchup, I believe, with LSU early in the College World Series, which is another team that kind of seems to be Arkansas's kryptonite, LSU and Ole Miss. It's just something about those programs. So I think that was kind of the general reaction. I think a lot of fans maybe even assume that Ole Miss might not make it through their regional, based on last year's results and also based on the fact that, Ole Miss made a long run through Hoover, and that doesn't necessarily bode well in the regionals. But of course, Ole Miss took care of business, and now everyone's a little bit nervous going into the Supers.
It seems like every team in the SEC kind of has that team. For Ole Miss, it's Mississippi State, which is probably a bad thing for their side in the rivalry. I think State is, whatever it is, against 14-2 against Ole Miss in the last 16 or something like that. And it's not like that bad with Ole Miss and Arkansas, but Ole Miss is the only team since the middle of 2017 to win a series in Fayetteville. They've done it twice. What is it kind of about Ole Miss, or is there anything that you kind of identify from that side of things that's made Arkansas a little more susceptible when it comes to the Rebels?
I'm really not sure, because LSU, as I mentioned, is the same thing, and with them, it's almost like a mental LSU voodoo type of thing. A couple of years ago, Arkansas had LSU beat and a possum ran out on the field, and you end up blowing an 8-run lead. And at that point, you're just thinking, oh my goodness, they've got some sort of weird voodoo hex going on. And you really don't have that with Ole Miss. It's one of those things where it's just like Ole Miss beats you, and you don't really remember it. I don't know if it's maybe because LSU it seems to be more of a rival to everybody in the SEC just because they've been so successful through the years. But it's just one of those things that just kind of it's a weird baseball thing. As you know, baseball kind of produces some weird results. As you mentioned, Ole Miss can't beat Mississippi State for some reason, and that doesn't make sense because Mississippi State's a good program, but so is Ole Miss. You'd think that it would be a little bit more even over the years, and for some reason it just hasn't been that way between Arkansas and Ole Miss.
What's been the big thing for Dave Van Horn to kind of shake off the way last year ended? I'm sure you've heard this question 1,000 times, but with the ball in the air to win a national title and to at least be back in position to get back to Omaha, what was sort of the keys to getting that group to not dwell on the past a little bit? Because Ole Miss had some of that. You mentioned they lose to Tennessee Tech in the regional, and all year it was sort of this underlying theme of, hey, get back to postseason, get back to a regional to try to rectify that. What's that sort of been like from Arkansas with the national championship game, the way it went?
Well, to be honest, I don't think anybody really – I mean, obviously there's the diehard fans that expect you to make it to Omaha every year, but really most of the media, myself included, did not think Arkansas was going to be quite that good this year. I thought Arkansas was going to make it into a regional, maybe be a borderline host, and maybe sneak in and do some damage in the regional, but I really didn't think they had any chance to get back to Omaha, much less be in a position to potentially compete for a national championship again, because last year's team, they lost 6 of the 9 regular starters. They lost 2 of the 3 weekend arms. They lost the 2 top bullpen arms. Sure, you get guys like, Heston Kjerstad, Casey Martin, Matt Cronin back, but your top pitcher is Isaiah Campbell, who was really up and down last year. And Dave Van Horn's just kind of, said next man up. I mean, he brought in guys that are talented, and guys that were in reserve roles last year are now really contributing. He did a good job of bringing in some transfers. Trevor Ezell, the first baseman, he's a second baseman by trade, converted to first base the week before opening day, and has been an all defensive first baseman despite being about 5'6". You got a JUCO transfer in Matt Goodhart, who has filled in at designated hitter and was hitting 400 at one point late in the season before kind of ending the year on a slump. So really, he's just kind of brought pieces in, made them fit, and somehow put together the number 5 team in the country, which is really incredible. I still have a hard time when I look at this team on paper. I'm like, how is this a number 5 team in the country? It doesn't make sense. But then you look at it individually. Isaiah Campbell has put together a unbelievable year. I think he's 11-1 now. It's a 2-point-something ERA, really low. He's been even better than Blaine Knight was last year, which is hard to believe considering he went 14-0. And it's just, across the board, guys have stepped up. There have been a couple of freshmen that have come in and started. 2 of the 3 weekend guys are freshman pitchers. And he's just kind of, Van Horn's kind of built that culture where it just kind of, it's more rebuild than reload. You kind of see it at, Alabama in football and Kentucky in basketball. It's one of those things where you don't really, when you have a good year, you lose a lot, but you also replace them with talented players. And I think that's just a tribute to what Dave Van Horn has done, on the recruiting trail. And once again, when they're here to push all the right buttons and make them all work.
Yeah, you mentioned the freshmen. That's kind of where I was going next, because that's one of the interesting storylines of this weekend. Both teams are going to have 2 freshman starters on the weekend after, I'm assuming, Campbell and Etheridge in game 1. But then you've got Nolan, you've got Wicklander for Arkansas, you've got Nikhazy and Hoagland for Ole Miss. How did those freshmen kind of acclimate to postseason play? How was the nerves? How was the mentality? That kind of thing. Is looking from the scores, they did well, but what did you kind of notice from them over the weekend during the regional?
Yeah, Nolan actually got the start in game 1 against Central Connecticut because they wanted to hold back Isaiah for either Cal or TCU, and ended up being TCU. But he pitched really well. He went 5 1/3, but only needed about 58 pitches to do it. He could have gone a lot deeper. He was very, very efficient, as he has been, at Hoover and his last start at Texas A&M, where he's just throwing, maybe 10, 11, 12 pitches per inning, and he could go a lot deeper in the games than what he's been doing. But Van Horn pulled him out of that game thinking if there's an if necessary game on Monday, we can recycle him and use him again. But this weekend, when that's not the case, I would expect him to go deeper in games if he's able to be as efficient. But he's been really, really good. His last, I think, 7 or 8 starts, he's got an ERA around 150, something like that. That all started with a really bad start at Vanderbilt, which Vanderbilt makes anybody look bad. But he didn't record an out, gave up 7 runs. All 7 guys he faced scored. And about that time, though, he's a 2-sport guy. He played quarterback for Arkansas in the fall, even started a game. So he was trying to go through spring practice. Well, that Vanderbilt start was the very end of spring practice, and ever since then, when he's been able to focus on baseball, he's been really, really good. So I expect that to continue as well. Patrick Wicklander, he's a guy that came in. He started out in the bullpen, really, really struggled coming out of the bullpen. I think he had like an ERA over 11 or 12, something like that, and like 6 or 7 relief appearances. But then as a starter, he's been really solid. His ERA's in the 2 range, something like that. He threw 5 scoreless innings yesterday. Wasn't nearly as efficient as Nolan. He averaged like 20 pitches his first 3 innings. Pitch count got really up there, but did a nice job getting out of a jam, I think in the 4th inning against TCU, and got through the 5th pretty good. And he's the guy that Arkansas is probably not going to ask to go very deep into games, if he can give them 5 and keep them in the game and then turn it over to the bullpen, which Arkansas feels pretty good about right now, then he's done his job. So they both did really well in their first time out on a really big stage, playing in front of a lot of people. First time for Wicklander. Connor, luckily he had that advantage of playing in front of 60,000 fans in a start during football season. So I expect them to continue that, but obviously Ole Miss is a whole other story from Central Connecticut and TCU.
Take a quick break in our talk with Andrew to tell you about Community Mortgage, Oxford, Memphis, Soto County, and Chattanooga. All underwriting and processing is done in Memphis, so you're getting local underwriting. It understands your market, a leader in condo financing in Oxford and the float down option, so you can lock in the current rate. But if rates go down before you close, you just get the lower rate. 662-234-2704 or JLOWE@communitymtg.com.
We're also sponsored by Grenada Nissan. Grenada Nissan's the place to go if you are looking for a Nissan vehicle. They have a complete selection of new and previously owned Nissan vehicles, great lease deals as well. Drop in, test drive one, tell Gene and Sandy that you heard about Grenada Nissan on the podcast or at rebelgrove.com, and you'll get Rebel savings on top of your already great deal at Grenada Nissan. It's GrenadaNissanUSA.com. Podcast also brought to you by Harry Alexander. Harry is an Oxford-based RE/MAX Legacy Realty agent. He's a big part of Savannah Square. It's a new 9-acre development, 0.7 of a mile from the Oxford downtown square, conveniently located east of North Lamar, just a short stroll from the Midtown Shopping Center and all of those establishments that are right there conveniently located. Savannah Square will initially consist of 32 standalone detached structures ranging in size from 1,100 square feet to 2,400 square feet. The model home is available for your inspection. It's at 215 William Street. When you check it out, you can also check out the wonderful layouts and impeccable finishes which are available to you. So get in touch with Harry. Go to SavannahSquareOxford.com and then give Harry a call or a text at 662-801-5621. Now back to Andrew Hutchinson on the Patterson and Earhart hotline.
Yeah, I hate to put too much weight on the SEC tournament for a team like Arkansas because they had the national seed wrapped up no matter what happened in Hoover. But they did lose 4 or 5 there at one point late in the year, 5 of 7. Was there any sort of thing during that lull that they had to kind of correct, or was there one thing that caused some of that trouble? They lose 2 out of 3 against A&M. They lose the finale against LSU. Then a couple games in Hoover. What sort of caused that when it was really the only lull they had all season for the most part?
Yeah, they had to start hitting the ball again. They could not hit worth a darn over those last 7 games. They went from about a 16-game stretch where they were averaging close to 10 runs a game and hitting like 360, 370 as a team to hitting, I think, 199 as a team over that 7-game stretch, averaging less than 3 runs a game. They got good pitching, but they just didn't hit the ball and give them any type of run support. You saw it in Hoover. You saw it at Texas A&M. But, again, that probably has something to do with you were facing Doxakis. You didn't have to face Lacey against Texas A&M because he was suspended that series, but they had Weber, who was really, really good. And then they had the top ERA in the SEC at the time. And then you had to face Ole Miss, who has good pitching, and Georgia, who threw a guy that was he's a freshman that was going to be a first-round pick if he wanted to go out of high school. So they just faced really good pitching, and now return home. You're at Baum Walker Stadium, and they just kind of got the bats going again this weekend. But really, that was really the cause of that lull where they could not hit the ball to save their life. And you kind of saw them start breaking out. I think they scored 11 against Central Connecticut. They only scored 3 against TCU the first time, but TCU is throwing Nick Lodolo, who's going to be a top 10 pick tonight. And then they scored 6 last night against TCU and was a pretty solid offensive showing. So that's really the thing they got to get going again. And I think they started doing it. There's still some guys like Casey Martin who's in the midst of a really miserable slump, but they, for the most part, are swinging the bat pretty good.
Let's switch gears a little bit. Football, Ole Miss and Arkansas meet in week 2 here coming up before we probably know it. For Ole Miss, if there's a path to 6, it almost has to include Arkansas. And I look at Arkansas, they're trying to still kind of do that rebuild thing too under Chad Morris. And Ole Miss appears to be the key that if you could find a way to get that one, the Hogs might start 4-0. So I think for both teams, they probably already have this thing circled.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Arkansas's path to 6 as well because they've got a really easy non-conference schedule that I'm sure has SEC haters up in arms going, oh, how could they schedule Portland State and Colorado State and San Jose State and Western Kentucky? That's a horrible schedule. Michigan was on the schedule until they bailed and resumed their series with Notre Dame. So that's really not Arkansas's fault, but it's probably a good thing for Arkansas because they would probably not fare well against Michigan this year. You'd think they could win all 4 non-conference games. Then you got to figure out how to win 2 conference games. Ole Miss early in the season is one that fans are kind of pointing to as, hey, win that one and then find a way to win another one, whether you can finally break through and beat Texas A&M at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. Maybe you can find a way to beat Kentucky on the road. They lost a lot. There's some other, Missouri at the end of the year. That's potentially a winnable game. But it all starts, you got to beat Ole Miss to have a chance. So it's going to be a big game for both teams. Really quick early in the season, week 2. And as you know, it's produced some wild games through the years, and I'm always excited to see Ole Miss and Arkansas play because you just never know what's going to happen. You're probably looking at overtime, wild plays, things like that. So it's definitely a big game for sure.
Everybody has a rivalry trophy. I feel like those two teams should play for Houston Nutt's straw hat at this point. Just pass it back and forth every time they win or lose. You mentioned Chad Morris. He recruited a little better this last year. They had a good class. Not necessarily nationally ranked, but it looked like they just kind of got into the right areas, started to put sort of a plan in place. What's the approval rating early on with Arkansas fans and Morris?
Well, a 2-10 season does not do you any favors, but what he was able to do on the recruiting trail kind of bought him some time, I think. You mentioned that the class wasn't rated super high. I think it ended up around 20th or something. Really, I believe it's the best class in school history, at least during the Rivals era, because they were able to sign, I believe, 11 or 13 four-stars. It's been a while since I wrote it back in February, but they signed more four-stars than they've ever signed before in a single class, and they got back into Texas. That was something that Brett Bielema really messed up on, in my opinion. He completely abandoned the state of Texas, which has been kind of a fertile recruiting ground for Arkansas, dating back to the 1960s with Frank Broyles. So he's kind of reinvigorated that. They're still trying to bring guys in. It's going to be, I think fans realize that it's going to be a rebuilding process. I think a lot of fans are expecting a bowl game in year 2. I think if they would be doing pretty good if they got to 5 wins. But I think fans, considering it's coming off a 2-10 season, they're okay. They're not ready to fire them yet. There obviously are some, but as a general consensus, I think they're all still in that wait and see mode going into year 2.
What's the quarterback situation?
Well, they brought in 2 grad transfers. Ben Hicks from SMU, who played and had success for Chad Morris a couple of years ago when Chad was there. He is the all-time passing leader at SMU, but again, that's SMU. That's a American Conference team. So it's kind of interesting to see if he's going to be able to come in. I expect him to be the starter at first, just because he was here during the spring, kind of already developed that chemistry with the receivers. He's been a really big leader based on everything we've heard. He's come in and really kind of helped bring along those, top recruits. They had a couple of wide receivers, early enrollees that are probably going to be, freshman all-SEC caliber guys like Trey Knox. He's really been a key to bringing those guys along. But they also added Nick Starkel, the transfer from Texas A&M, who SEC fans probably remember. He started the year for Texas A&M, I think, a couple of years ago, got hurt in that UCLA game where they collapsed. Then he came back the back half of that year, did really, really well, put up huge numbers, I think against Duke in their bowl game, and then kind of lost his job to Kellen Mond this past season, decided to transfer. He's got that relationship, being a Texas kid, with Chad Morris already. So he's going to come in and but he just got to campus a couple of weeks ago, maybe earlier this month, or last month, I guess it was. And is starting to kind of adjust. He's going to go through fall practice. But again, it takes some time to adjust to a new system. Ben Hicks didn't really have that adjustment period because he knows the system already, probably better than anybody else on the team, even though he's a transfer addition. But it wouldn't surprise me. Week 2 when Arkansas plays Ole Miss, it's probably still going to be Ben Hicks. You might see some Nick Starkel in the game. But I wouldn't be surprised if, by week 4, the 4th game of the year, if Nick Starkel's under center.
Perfect. Well, Andrew, I appreciate the time today, and I'll see you in Fayetteville this weekend.
All right, looking forward to it.
Thanks to Andrew for his time yesterday afternoon is when we taped that on the podcast. The podcast is also brought to you by Mastercut's Lawn and Landscape. You know about their premium lawn care throughout northern Mississippi, but they offer a lot more as well. Everything from custom playgrounds, retaining walls, pool decks, outdoor living spaces, paver patios, forestry mulching, and more. The path to your dream backyard easier than you think. Go mastercuts.com for a free quote or give them a call at 662-607-7773. Again, that's gomastercuts.com.
Don't miss 1 minute of the action at the Vault this season as Ole Miss football arrives this September. Reserve, I should say, your season tickets with the new 2019 season ticket pricing for just $299. For more information, visit OleMissTix.com. Guests join us on the Patterson and Earhart hotline. Patterson and Earhart, attorneys at law. They specialize in personal injury law and real estate law, but theirs is a general practice that can handle any of your legal needs. What you do is you take advantage of being a podcast listener. Reach out to John Calvin Patterson, to Wes Earhart, and let them know what legal issue is on your mind, what potential legal issue is on your mind. That initial consultation's free. They'll help you, and they'll give you some advice whether you need to pursue something, whether you probably should just let something be. They'll take care of you. Just tell them you heard about it on the podcast, and you'll get a little extra attention. 662-526-1992, or check out their website, PELaws.com. Podcast also brought to you by Pinnacle Trust. Pinnacle Trust, based in Madison, Mississippi, represents clients in more than 20 states, has advisors in 3 states. Pinnacle Trust provides detailed, specialized investment management, financial planning, retirement planning for individuals and businesses, and so much more. Pinnacle Trust treats investing like a commodity. Decisions are made using objective information and research, not emotions. So regardless of your level of wealth, Pinnacle Trust will sit down with you, listen to your goals, study your expenses, and put forth a comprehensive, detailed financial and retirement plan that is built just for you. It's pintrust.com, PINN trust.com. Mention you heard about Pinnacle Trust on the podcast. You'll get 10% off your first year's fee. I'm taking questions on rebelgrove.com and on Twitter for my mailbag, which is brought to you by the Westin Jackson. It will be published sometime Wednesday. If you are in Jackson for business, passing through Jackson on your way somewhere, or you're spending a weekend in Jackson just sort of maybe playing some golf, checking out some restaurants, whatever the case may be, the Westin Jackson is the place for you to stay. It's a Marriott property. You can accrue or use your Marriott rewards points. You can also visit Soul Spa. It's the ultimate luxury spa experience in downtown Jackson. Indulge in personalized massages, signature facials, soothing body treatments, and much more on their extensive spa list. And then you can go over to Estelle Wine Bar and Bistro right there in the Westin Jackson, sip on a creative craft cocktail, or enjoy their curated wine list. It's open for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. So gather at Estelle tonight.
So, completely off topic, but we do that from time to time. We had that question in the mailbag on Friday about the guy who was allergic to red meat. Remember that?
Yes.
Okay. I had a friend yesterday send me a link, and I had never heard of this. Apparently, some people in Oxford have dealt with it. It is a southeastern United States thing that if a Lone Star tick bites you, it transmits a sugar molecule into your body. This triggers an immune system reaction that later produces mild to severe allergic reactions when people eat red meat. It's found throughout the southeastern United States. It's spreading to other parts of the country as well, and that essentially it's can be pretty severe. Everything from hives, itching, swelling of the lips, wheezing, shortness of breath, abdominal pain, headaches, anaphylaxis. Doctors think the time delay between eating red meat and developing an allergic reaction is one of the reasons the condition was overlooked until recently, because you eat a T-bone for dinner, you don't get it till midnight or after. But nonetheless, a very real thing, and apparently a very real thing in our area.
Wow.
I had no idea. I had never heard of it.
I hadn't either. That's scary as hell.
I'm a little worried now. I mean, that would... I mean, I know people have shellfish allergies, and I do like some shellfish, but red meat would be tough.
Yeah, like Carson has some nut allergies we have to be careful with.
Really?
Yeah. We got the EpiPen.
Okay.
I don't think it's like severe, but he gets it. It's funny, he doesn't like, if there's peanut butter around, he has no interest in it at all. And I could sit and eat a jar of it.
Is it because of the reaction, or did he not like it anyway beforehand?
It's funny, he's never liked it. It's almost like something told him don't like that, so he didn't. But yeah, that's weird that you just suddenly I mean, that I'm not questioning the medicine. It's obviously the case. That's kind of scary. So now, if you eat a steak, you're kind of worried. Am I going to wake up in the middle of the night dying?
I mean, Yeah, sort of. I mean, I guess you have to get bit by the tick, though.
Well, do you know when the tick bites you?
Well, no, and you don't know it was that kind of tick. There are multiple forms of ticks.
Yeah.
There's not just one. The guy that bet on the Blues or whatever, still not hedging, even though it went 2-2 last night.
Oh, did St. Louis tie it up?
Yeah, St. Louis tied it up last night, 2-2. So,
That's now a 3-game series. I'd be a pretty nervous wreck.
Well, I would have already hedged beforehand.
Oh, for sure.
The Jeopardy dude lost. See that?
Yeah, I put that in 10 thoughts.
Okay, yeah, he lost. It was interesting, and he makes all the sense in the world. So I hate Darren Ravel, but he did talk to this guy for a story yesterday, and I found this fairly interesting. So the guy had won, let's see, $2.4 million. He got $2,000 for finishing second yesterday. Whoopee, great. By the way, this was filmed in like early April, so it's been known he was going to lose in this episode for more than a month, 2 months. But anyway, it started running on Monday, and Montgomery, Alabama was the first market, the first affiliate to run this particular show, so I guess it started spreading after that. But he goes into Final Jeopardy with $23,400. That was $3,200 behind Emily Botcher, I'm not sure. Let's go with Betcher. And she had kind of found the Daily Double. She'd had a good run. She's obviously a very worthy Jeopardy champion. And Holzhauer got the question right, but he wagered just $13.99. And everybody thought that was really odd, because why would you wager $13.99 when you're $3,200 behind the leader, right?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So that would have taken him to $24,799, which was $1,801 behind Betcher before she ever started. But Holzhauer explained that first he was concerned with the contestant in third place, who had $11,000 heading into Final Jeopardy. Doubling down would have gotten the contestant to $22,000, which would have been one less dollar than if James would have missed. If James would have doubled down, he would have been at $46,800, but Betcher seemed to have done the math perfectly as well. She got the question right and wagered $20,201, which gave her $46,801, a dollar more than Holzhauer would have earned with a double down bet. He says, "I knew I could only win if Emma missed Final Jeopardy, as there was no way she wouldn't bet to cover my all-in bet. So my concern was getting overtaken by third place, and I bet just enough to make sure of locking him out. Betting big would have looked good for the cameras, but now I turn my straight bet into a parlay if Emma misses and I get it right."
That makes sense.
Made all the sense in the world, but just when you watch it, you go, whoa, what are you doing? But yeah, that he made sure it was a 2-man race, not a 3-man race.
Yeah, it's the difference between
he and
people,
us.
Yeah, really high-level IQs and some cat like us.
We'd have been like, bet it all. Just go. Sure. Whatever.
Yeah, it's why when people do this, I'm not trying to get political here, but you can't prop everybody up across the board. It doesn't work. There is a certain, Darwin was on to something.
That's where Jeffrey would say we're all the same.
We're not all the same. That's just the bottom line. We're not all created equal. You have your own skill set, and you've got to learn how to maximize it. But that guy, and apparently the young lady that defeated him,
a librarian from Chicago,
they mentally work on a different level than the average cat.
Yeah,
it is what it is. They're smarter.
Taxes trimmed his his 2.4 million to 1.29 million, a 47.6% haircut.
God, that's ridiculous.
Lost 47%.
That is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to get a little political here. Taxing people at the rates that some of the people want people taxed is just wrong. He shouldn't pay that big of a punishment for being smart.
It's skill. That's not luck.
No, it's a skill.
That's skill. He got 97% of his answers correct. And he answered 32 of 33 Final Jeopardy questions correctly.
He's something
97%. It's crazy. He holds the all-time record for most money earned in a single episode, $131,127. And he has the top 16 best shows during his tenure. He finishes second all-time in wins and money to Ken Jennings, the famed Jeopardy champion from back whenever.
Yeah, I'm sure the people at Jeopardy were quite pleased to see this run happen. Maybe they were ready for it to end, but I'm sure they're glad it happened.
And not to be morbid or anything, but I'm glad that Trebek was still healthy enough to work his run here.
Yeah, I mean,
to see a great champion.
It sounds like he's
doing okay.
At least hanging in there.
Yeah, I don't know what that means from a prognosis standpoint, but he appears to be okay day to day to some extent. So
you've got feeling myself for ticks right now. I'm like in every. I'm totally paranoid about like ticks somewhere.
Well, and you don't play golf.
No, I don't play golf, and in the summer I probably shower 3 to 4 times a day.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah, anyway. Holzhauer, last thing on this, he said, I sketched out what I believe to be my optimal strategy for Jeopardy. Play fast, build a stack, bet big, and hope for the best. Well, it worked. So Billy Beane told him he was curious about it, potentially getting him into the front office of a major league organization because of his analytical mind.
Yeah, I can see that. There's so much the way baseball's done now is they, what do your analytics say you are worth, and then how much above replacement would I have to go from a money standpoint? All that stuff. I mean, every Major League Baseball front office right now is basically one giant accounting center.
Well, on a very micro level, that's why Thomas Dillard, if he goes a little earlier today than a lot of people think he's going to go, that's why, because he hits for extra bases. He walks. He has some speed. And, now, especially in the major conferences, the Major League, Major League Baseball puts TrackMan and pays for it in all these facilities, but they get the use of the data. And Thomas Dillard has one of the top 10 exit velocities in college baseball. They run all that into a computer and go, hey, maybe he is a 4th-round pick. Let's go grab him.
And again, and I mentioned this on the kid from Cal, Vaughn, that went 3rd overall. So I'll be short with it. If you talk to Major League Baseball people, they believe that part of the next collective bargaining agreement, the DH is going to become baseball-wide. And I'm not saying Thomas can't play left field or that he can't catch or whatnot. I'm not saying that. But obviously his biggest tool is the bat. And if every team has a DH, a guy like him maybe even becomes more valuable. Because he's a guy that obviously could hit. He hits for power. He draws walks. And he would give you some versatility because probably I'm just saying if, before anybody attacks me, if a major league team said, you know what, we really don't think he's an everyday left fielder. We really don't think he's an everyday catcher. What we really like about him is his bat. But if he's a guy on our roster that could play left field for a few innings or a couple of games, or could be an emergency catcher where if something happened and you'd already made a change and then your backup catcher got hurt, could he come in and catch an inning? There's some value there. Whereas in the past, if that was the determination about him, that you didn't think his glove translated to the major league level, all the National League teams are basically out on him. I think it's pretty obvious that the DH is going to become universal in Major League Baseball, and that's going to expand his pool.
Yeah, there's just a couple. There's more spots to go. It's fine. We'll figure it out. Let him hit.
Well, yeah, I mean, in the American League, the DH is a real thing. I mean, that's a spot typically in the middle of the order. You want like Andrew Vogelbach with Seattle. You want cats that can drive the ball out of the yard. Not Andrew. His name's Dan Vogelbach. The Cubs traded him for Mike Montgomery, which led to one of Theo Epstein's biggest funny quotes. But anyway, it was, he's not a guy that can really play defensively in the bigs day in and day out.
And it doesn't matter.
but he can hit, and, you want those at-bats. He's a guy that can drive the ball out of any yard. And Dillard's the same way. I mean, my God, he crushes the ball.
Well, I mean, Seth Smith could play a little outfield, but he was a professional hitter. He would have had a lot more opportunities if there were DHs in both leagues to hang around maybe even longer.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. No question about it.
Dude was a professional hitter.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and he was an okay defender, but he wasn't good enough where you could say, "Hey, we can put this guy in right field every day and it not be a liability." He didn't possess all the tools that you needed to be an everyday right fielder. But yeah, if the National League had the DH, there probably would have been some teams that would have said, "You know what? There's worse guys to get 4.3 at bats a game than Seth Smith."
Yeah, 15 more jobs.
Yeah,
minimum.
Absolutely. And then if you're, a guy like Dillard, I think he could run around and play a little left field, frankly.
He's a good athlete. It doesn't look overly comfortable, and just because of his size, people kind of minimize his foot speed.
I hate making Cub analogies because I know people get sick of it, but that's the team I watch. There's a lot of Kyle Schwarber there. And Schwarber's better in left field than he gets credit for being. And he makes the plays. Sometimes he just doesn't make them very pretty.
That's a good example. Yeah, I'll buy that. I tried to think it out for a second, but yeah, that's exactly what it is. He catches pretty much everything he's supposed to catch. It's not this fluid Jackie Bradley kind of thing going on.
Yeah, no, he's never going to win a Gold Glove. Yeah. But he throws well. He's thrown some people out. A year ago, he was one of the more efficient throwers in the outfield in Major League Baseball. But it's never going to look pretty. And sometimes I think some of the, he doesn't take the greatest routes and some of that stuff. But he can hit. And if the National League went to the DH, I think Schwarber's a candidate to DH a lot because you like having his bat in the lineup because every time he's up there, especially against right-handed pitching, he can drive it out of the ballpark. Speaking of traveling, you can check out John Edwards of Regency Travel Incorporated in Memphis, whether you're still planning your summer trip, whether you're thinking about a special trip, an anniversary, a honeymoon, whatnot, whether you're thinking about holiday trips already, as it is the middle of the year, get in touch with John. He's a part of Virtuoso. It's a worldwide network of travel partners that allows John to supply his clients with added values and unique benefits that are simply not available to other travelers. John traveled the globe for 37 years before he got into the travel business. He knows the extra attention that's needed to make a special trip, one that creates a lifetime of unique memories. So get in touch with John, give him some parameters and a budget, let him give you some options, and know this, you don't have to live in or near Memphis to take advantage of his services. Call John at 901-494-3387. or send him an email at jedwards@regencytravel.net. First-time clients can save $50 off their first booked trip just by telling John that you heard about Regency Travel on the podcast. The crap take of the day was brought to you yesterday by my great friend Brandon Marcello, who was tone deaf enough to go on Twitter and criticize some of the Mississippi journalists for talking about the attendance at the regionals in both Oxford and Starkville over the weekend. It was kind of tone deaf given the fact that Brandon covers Auburn, which is in the state of Alabama, which has a bunch of journalists who are absolutely obsessed with attendance at spring football games. That crap take of the day is brought to you by Scoopers Pet Waste Removal, LLC. Everyone, presumably even Brandon, loves their pets, but no one loves stepping in their pet stuff. Tracking that stuff into your house is a nightmare. Scoopers will handle it for you. They'll go into your backyard, your apartment complex or condominium, and they'll pick up what no one really wants to pick up. For $10 of cleaning, Scoopers will clean up your yard. They'll do it on your schedule, whether that's weekly, bi-weekly, or a one-time service. No contracts are required. You can cancel at any time. If you have multiple dogs, it's just $2 for each additional dog. So if you own a home, a condo, or an apartment complex in Oxford, and you'd like to deal with a lot less crap, call Scoopers at 662-506-2754, or simply send them an email at scoopers.oxfordpetwaste@gmail.com to get your cleanings scheduled today. Scoopers Pet Waste Removal. They're number one in your pet's number two business.
Yeah, credit to Michael Borky there. He went and found multiple times that Marcelo had a celebrated attendance over the years. Weird.
It's just bizarre. I mean, look, you said this yesterday.
He comes off very angry a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you'd be angry about that. I mean, it's just a credit to Ole Miss, to Mississippi State, to Arkansas, to LSU, the league, man. I mean, I'm sure Vanderbilt packed their place out. It doesn't hold as many people, but it's okay. It's a cool atmosphere, I think. I think it's a fun place to go watch a game, frankly. I mean, it's good. Texas A&M, if they had a regional, it'd be packed out. It's good.
Kentucky just spent $40 million on a baseball facility. Kentucky.
Yeah, I don't know why that creates such angst. I mean, and I'm not the biggest college baseball guy in the world, but I think it's cool that Ole Miss and State packed it out the way they did over the weekend at their respective places.
I'm having a little trouble with the one number difference on attendance, but yeah.
I'm trying to give them credit for that being coincidental, but man, I don't know.
It's probably really good to have the later first pitch.
Yeah. And if Ole Miss intentionally changed, because look, there were more people in Oxford than what Ole Miss announced, and good for Ole Miss for being smart enough to skim off the top, if you will.
Yeah.
But if somebody there was smart enough to go, hey, let's just make it one more.
Yeah. What's the number today? I don't know. Whatever the number has to be one more.
Plus one. It's like the Price is Right.
Yeah.
What's a bid? $1, Bob. That whoever that guy or girl was, you're kind of my hero. That is the kind of trolling that I have.
You're okay with that kind of trolling.
I have tremendous appreciation for not even subtle. No one gets hurt. It's kind of funny trolling.
Yeah.
But the truth is, if you looked at pictures from both Starkville and Oxford over the weekend, both places had huge crowds.
Yeah, I haven't seen an overall list, but I would almost guarantee that Baton Rouge, Oxford, and Starkville had the three largest attendances. Well, there's no guarantee. I know they did.
And I saw pictures of Fayetteville. It was absolutely overflowing with people, and that's great. I mean, it's good.
Those four schools finish 1 through 4 in attendance every single year.
Yeah, and that's good.
Pretty much.
It's a cool thing. I mean, people have fun.
I was a little shocked that Arkansas-Ole Miss didn't have a night start just because of environment for TV.
Yeah, it's funny. Arkansas likes playing day games, best I can tell. They do a lot of that.
I mean, it'll be packed. It'll be whatever, but...
Oh, yeah, it'll be jam-packed. Listen, I said this earlier in the podcast. The two towns are very similar.
I like Fayetteville. I'm just in a bad mood when I get there.
It's not that bad of a drive. There's 2 or 3 places to stop that kind of break it up.
Yeah, something about that drive I hate. Can't stand it.
Campbell and I have figured out a couple of places to stop that breaks it up, and we still get there in less than 6 hours, and it's not that bad.
Yeah. Well, that'll be Friday's journey.
You're going to do
first pitch, huh?
You're going to do it in the rain Friday.
That's not helping.
Yeah.
That does not add drive in the rain and probably kills golf all at the same time. Not real tickled here. Not excited.
I don't think you're golfing on Friday.
You don't?
I mean, not if the weather app is right, unless you want to golf in the rain, which I guess.
I mean, that's my prerogative if I feel the need, but.
Yeah, I mean, no one's going to stop you, I suppose.
Well, the clubhouse might, but yeah. Okay, well, fair enough. Ole Miss and Arkansas Saturday, 11 a.m., and then continuing Sunday for sure, and then Monday, if this thing does go to Game 3, one of those two teams will head to the College World Series, and they'll play LSU or Florida State in the first game in Omaha, or at least the first round of Omaha. Obviously, I don't know a College World Series schedule, but nonetheless, Ole Miss and Arkansas, LSU, Florida State is in this little pod as we move toward TD Ameritrade Park in a week.
It's conceivable. That. It's conceivable that we could get the Bianco versus Bianco thing in Omaha.
That is correct. That is correct.
So I still have a good message board meltdown to cheer for.
So that's what you want? You want Ole Miss LSU in Omaha? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, look, there's a part of me, the real evil part of me, that would love Ole Miss LSU in Omaha, ninth inning, 5-4 Ole Miss, LSU at the plate, man on,
And
2 outs.
Strides.
And here comes Drew Bianco. I would feel bad for Mike. I would feel bad for Drew. First of all, I'm a nice enough person that I would feel bad for those people.
But
I'm also just psychotic enough to really I would want to freeze time and enjoy message boards at that moment.
On both sides.
Yes.
Let's see. SEC teams, if they went scratch this weekend, which, I mean, the way they roll through the regionals, I'm not ready to rule that out. Let's just say Ole Miss wins because people will be more interested in what goes on. You could get a pretty intriguing College World Series bracket. You've got UCLA, Michigan on this side, and then Texas Tech, Oklahoma State. So let's say a Big 12 team, and then UCLA is in Omaha, and then Ole Miss. LSU would be obviously a pretty neat deal. Mississippi State and Auburn could match up in the first round of Omaha if they both won on their side. And then the winner of the Mike Bianco Invitational, East Carolina and Louisville, will face Vanderbilt in the first game in Omaha. So you could have Vanderbilt, Louisville, or East Carolina, State, and Auburn on one side. And then LSU, Ole Miss, whichever Big 12 team wins, and probably UCLA.
Well, I'm just going to tell you now, the Final Four is going to be Vanderbilt, State, the winner of Ole Miss, Arkansas, and then
UCLA.
Yeah.
So you're expecting 3 SEC teams in the Final Four?
Yes.
Okay. And obviously one in the final because State would play Vanderbilt in that scenario.
I think I told you yesterday I'm expecting Vanderbilt against the Ole Miss Arkansas winner in the final.
Okay. So if Ole Miss wins this weekend, you're telling me to go ahead and pack a lot of clothes.
Yeah, I'm telling you they're going to the final. And if Arkansas wins this weekend, I think they're going to the final. I do. I think whoever wins is going to be so hot and so confident, and they pitch well.
Especially in that kind of park.
Ole Miss plays really well in those big parks.
Yeah.
And that's a huge park.
With the wind blowing in every day.
A few years ago, was it Virginia that beat them?
Yeah.
I mean, they ran into a really good team. Otherwise, they were going to the finals.
The winner of that game was going to the finals.
There's no super team that they're running. I mean, nothing against LSU or Florida State, but I would like
only see a super team in the final. That's the Commodores.
Yeah. UCLA's good, but they're not great.
No.
Vanderbilt's great.
Yeah.
They're great. I mean, they can beat you in any way you want to be beaten. They can do it.
Yeah.
The other teams aren't that way.
Yeah. So more tomorrow on the show. Plenty at rebelgrove.com as well. Have baseball later in the day. Neil's 10 thoughts are up and more. So we'll talk to you then.